So welcome back everybody. This is Paul again from VirginiaLandowner.com and this YouTube site. And I specialize in rural property. I'm in Western Virginia and I do country land and country estates and things like that. And I am a very strong advocate of good use of land and prepping and homesteading and domestic animals and farming. We need food, we need the open land. I'm a very good advocate of that. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about wood stoves and fireplaces. A lot of people have this charming view that someday I'm going to get my little cottage out in the country and then I'll have a little fireplace in there and it'll be all nice and cozy. Or maybe they dream of a wood stove, they never had one before, and they say, I'm going to go out and get my little cottage and cabin and have my wood stove. And I've actually lived with both fireplaces, and I lived 12 years in a home with a wood stove, and I want to tell you a little bit about them. And of course I've seen a lot of homes, and I also, when I was much younger, I rented for a little while, and we had a fire in our little place, and it was a chimney fire, and it was a really small place, but it got burned in pretty badly because of a bad chimney. So that's what I want to talk about. First of all, there's certainly nothing wrong at all with doing the wood stove. It's very pleasant actually. A nice, well done fireplace can have a really nice ambiance in a home, and it's just lovely to have. And there's some things that come along with that, which you got to clean the chimney regularly and make sure that's good. And you got to have good ventilation in your home and smoke detectors and things like that. And the same thing with a wood stove. A wood stove can produce a very nice, even, gentle heat. I lived in a place for 12 years. It was a small place, and it had a regular furnace that was add-on. But the house is really old, post and beam type of house. And we had a really quite nice wood stove in there. And when it was really well done, running well, it would really heat up the whole place. It was quiet. When the furnace went on, they had the big fan. It's cranking, and it would just take a long time to warm up in the morning. The other side of the coin is when you have a wood stove, there's very particular. First of all, you got a fire in your house, and you got to make sure that it's awfully sealed, and the chimney and it has to be there's separation. For example, you can put it 1 foot away from the wall if the wall is brick, or if you have some copper or something metal. We had a copper sheet that was about 2 inches away from the wall between the wood stove, and then that was even another 1.5 feet away from the wall, so from the wood stove. So there was a lot of room there. So that's one thing you gotta be careful about. And as far as little children, a wood stove is really a great thing to have, but you know, if a kid falls down and hurts himself or touches it or something, it can be really serious. So I really would urge people to consider very carefully about what a wood stove is. Now, another way of doing a wood stove that isn't as much danger to its children is maybe to put it in a basement where it is not, where the kids never go, and then you have to be responsible and go down there. In the old days, that's a lot of times what people would do. They would put their wood stove in the basement, and they'd have these big, huge metal pipes that would come up through the home, and the metal pipes would radiate the warmth, you see, or they would have some ducts that go through the house, and you know, it can be kind of primitive in the old days. But again, the safety of a wood stove, there's modern ones now that seal really tight, and they're extremely well made, and they just burn very efficiently, and they produce a really wonderful warm heat. Now, some of them have a little bit of window, and you can add that, and it's nice. Some of them have a nice flat top, and you can put things on there. And one thing I'd always do with a wood stove was to put some water in a pan on the surface, because a wood stove will tend to dry out a house, and it'll just bake the house and dry it out. So you want some humidity in your kitchen or wherever the wood stove is, and it helps actually hold the heat better as well. Now, another thing you got to deal with wood stoves is and fireplaces too, is what do you do with all that wood? Because I remember times we'd get an ice storm, and boy, that wood, if we saw an ice storm coming, I'm going to bring in like a bunch of wood and get it out of the ice, because once it gets all wet and icy like that, it's really hard to burn. So I would bring in logs and put them by the wood stove and let them dry out for a long time. And just because, okay, I got to get them ready, it's going to take me an hour to dry off this log before I can even put it in there. So there's a lot of logistical things that you got to think about. You got to have a place to store all the logs, and it's pretty darn messy, honestly, because as bark falls off and things like that. Now, another nice thing about a wood stove is that you don't have things that fall down in your yard and sticks and stuff. You can chop up the little things, make kindling, and then use that and burn it off. And same way with cardboard and things like that, you can burn that off and in a wood stove. But again, the firewood maintenance, it can cost some money, and you got to have a place to store it. You want to keep it dry and not under the snow. Once ice and snow gets on top of a firewood pile, good luck. It's going to be fun trying to get it out. So, there's a few things that I want to remind people about regarding wood stoves and fireplaces. The other thing, of course, is the chimney. With the fireplace, and even with a wood stove now, the modern ones, they'll have like either a ceramic or some really. The chimneys these days, they can build some really nice ones that don't collect as much of the debris and so on, the core burnable material that gets stuck in the chimney. So the older ones, there's a lot of old chimneys that are just stone, and you know they may have stood a long time, but they collect that corrosive material, that carbon material that collects in chimneys, and you really got to clean them out periodically. Otherwise, you can have some serious problems. Another thing that happens with chimneys, especially the older ones, is they can freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw, and they can get cracked, and then you can have smoke leaking into between the rafters or something like that, and you have a serious problem. So again, wood stoves and fireplaces are very, very lovely and charming, and they may or may not add value to a home. Some people really can't stand them. They say, hey, I'm done with fireplaces. And other people say, oh, I can't wait. I've never had a fireplace in my life. So when you choose to put one in, think carefully about where you're going to put it and the consequences and what you're going to do with the wood process and how much it's going to cost you. So just a little bit of information about wood stoves and fireplaces to hopefully help people in their purchase decisions. Thanks again for listening. Please like and share, and please feel free to contact me with any question. The website and the email address is it's right there on the website. Thanks.